from?
At two stages in my life. One was when I was attempting to start a newspaper for a very large conglomerate in India. And the second was when I was starting up my own company. And let me tell you that it is brutal. It is very difficult, and you have to sacrifice everything. And today's generation probably also does this in many startups, in many areas which we do not see and recognize at the moment. They're working all the hours that are available to them, and that is not necessarily a good thing, but does it exist? It does.
Is a 70-hour work week even feasible? Does longer working hours mean greater efficiency or more productivity? That's a question we want to ask our viewers. The numbers are flashing on your screens. You can call us here on CNN News 18, share your perspective, share your view about this, whether or not you would be comfortable working 70 plus hours through the week, and if not, then what is the alternative? Where are these comments coming from, and what should be the solution? Pallavi, my colleague, now joining us, getting us more details on this and more perspective. Now, Pallavi, we've seen the kind of debate that has erupted, especially on social media over this. Several celebrities, industry giants coming out and slamming these kind of comments. There are two aspects of it. One, of course, is whether a 70-hour work week is actually feasible, a 90-hour work week actually feasible. The other is the kind of comments that the L&T chairman made about would you want to stare at your wife all day?
Yes, absolutely. And the Labour Ministry, of course, has very, very strict norms as far as the working hours are concerned. As I said, I mean, what is the Labour Ministry putting out is that 48 hours of work in a week, and it can be up to 9 to 12 hours is what is really permitted as far as the Labour Act is concerned. So when these kind of voices are coming in from the corporate honchos, like whether it was Narayana Murthy or whether it's Mr. Subrahmanyan, it is not in sync with the labour laws of our country. Yes, there's a large number of employees in our country who belong to the unorganized sector. They are not in the formal sector, the blue collar workers. But even factories, as we all know, Poonam does have a very stringent norm as far as the working hours are concerned. But more than that, there is an increasing need and demand for a work-life balance. And, you know, we don't want to go the foreign countries' way. In India, the family time or the space for your me time is given a lot of importance, which explains why not just the peers of Mr. Subrahmanyan or Narayana Murthy came out with some very strong reactions yesterday, but even celebrities like Deepika Padukone also, who herself has done a lot of work as far as the mental health sector is concerned, also has done. And, you know, she found that entire comment very ridiculous, and there has been a lot of outrage on the social media. So I don't know as of now whether Larsen and Toubro is going to come out with any further clarification, but as of now, they seem to be agreeing with what the CMD has said.
Pallavi, do stay on with us. We have our viewers calling in, sharing their perspective. The numbers are flashing on the bottom of your screens. You can call in, you can share your perspective of what you feel about this particular proposal that has been made by the L&T chairman. Our first viewer calling in from Pune, Shubhangi is with us. Shubhangi, go ahead. What is your input? What is your reaction to this kind of proposal?
Yeah, good evening to all the viewers. I'm Shubhangi from Pune. And firstly, I was the person who said that what will you do staring at your wife, or what will you do staring at your husband? That's very wrong to say. I mean, you can always stare at your wife and appreciate her work. But other than that, you have so many things to do. If you are sitting at home, you can read, you can write, you can sing, you can learn some hobby, you can go look around in your city, what new things are happening. So this is not the only thing you do, that you stare at your husband or stare at your wife. Secondly, more hours means more productivity. I don't think so. If you work for 90 hours, you are more productive. I don't really think so. So if these people who want more productivity, I feel that they should go for like 8 hours of 8 hours work in 3 batches, in 3 shifts. So they can have 24 hours, and that could also lead to 168 hours, which is more productivity. So people will be more productive, and people and the employer or employer will be more happy.
Now that's a proposal that the L&T chairman perhaps should be considering. But Shubhangi, thank you so much for calling in with that idea of yours. Jayanti from Madurai is also with us. Go ahead, Jayanti.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Yes, I'm Jayanti from Madurai. Actually, I want to tell two things. See, I have two sons, and unofficially, they are working 24 hours a day into 7 days a week. See, even they are in the office or not, and they taken their laptop at the house, and 24 hours they are sitting in the laptop only. So whenever you call, they not even have a time for eating or anything. And one of my elder sons, he is traveling 25 days a month, and he hardly have a time to see what his son is doing in the school or anything at all. See, things are unofficially, they are working 24 hours a day. And if they do this, so what will be these youngsters in the future? See, what about their family life? They already have working too much. And
Absolutely. What is the work-life balance? Is there any time for that balance to be met at all? Thank you so much, Jayanti, for calling in. Mohan from Chennai is also with us on this broadcast. Mohan, what is your view on this 90-hour work week proposal that came into the fore from the L&T chairman?
Yes, sure. See, first of all, it is crazy and it is unethical to ask somebody work 7 day, 24 hours day, 7 day a week. See, the man says he's working 7 Sundays and he expects others to work Sundays. Is he paying the same amount to the other people? He's a chairman and he gets in crores. Does he pay his employees in crores? He's going to pay a shitty salary to all the employees. It doesn't mean that others should work for 7 hours, 7 days in a week. There should be some ethics of work. People should have rest. If they work continuously, they lose the efficiency. If the efficiency that counts, even if you work 6 hours or 5 hours a week, 5 hours a day, if you're efficient, you can quit the office and go. I believe in efficiency, not the hours spent on office.
Thank you so much, Mohan, for calling in. Vinay from Bengaluru is also with us on this broadcast. Vinay, what is your opinion on this 90-hour work week call? There have been several others, including Infosys chairman, Mr. Narayana Murthy, who also had something similar to say, who advocated for a 70-hour work week.
Yeah, good evening. Actually, even one of the, as an employee, I will tell you that, I don't know, yeah, it's like whether the leadership has gone mad or what, why they are, stating these kind of statements, because being an employee, it is too difficult to manage. Slowly, indirectly, our work structure has become from 7 to 8 hours to 10 to 12 hours. And that too, sitting in home, okay, it is being supportive, but these kind of statements, it's like, I don't know whether these guys need some psychiatric treatments or how these kind of statements, because a lot of impacts on it, and coming in future, definitely this being in corporate, there is no other option to the younger people in India, especially if you check strongly, the entrepreneurship is getting damaged due to these corporates, but there is no other option to our middle class people or employees, to grow better. Definitely, a good salary is needed, but
is that taking advantage? Is that being taken advantage of by advocating such long week hours? That's a question to be asked as well. But thank you so much for calling in here on CNN News 18. Bengalurians, in fact, calling in large numbers here. KG Mohan is also with us. Do you have something similar to say, sir? Are you an employee as well?
No, I am currently a consultant. My current problem with this issue is that we just a few months ago had Anna Sebastian losing her life thanks to work-life balance not being there in Ernst & Young. I think the industry has not taken any lessons from this. I understand that we need to have profitability for organizations and also growth, but at what cost? This is not the example to be given to people. I think Narayana Murthy and Mr. Subrahmanyan needs to understand that employees are not slave labor. They need to get efficient work out of them, give them time to relax, and understand that mental health is a crisis in the nation right now and needs to be addressed. You cannot encourage a situation where you make the leaders of organizations slave drive people to a state where they either land up committing suicide or they leave their professions and go to other professions. So it's important for
Absolutely. Mental
senior
health is
leaders.
extremely important, and it is for senior management and senior leadership across the board to recognize that we live in a day and age where mental health is being spoken of freely. There are reasons to believe that employees today do suffer some sort of mental setback if there is no work-life balance at such a time. Comments like this coming to the fore do zero service really to the large number of people who are wanting more out of life, wanting more out of their careers as well. Should they be punished for their ambition by making them work 90 hours a week? That's a question many are asking as well. Kiran from Bengaluru is also with us on this broadcast. Yes, Kiran, what is your opinion on this?
See, I'm working in one of the semiconductor pioneer company, and I'm a senior program manager. So I would like to make a very clear statement. There is a difference between a good leader and a great leader. I acknowledge probably Mr. Narayana Murthy and Subrahmanyan are good leaders, but they are not great leaders. The reason is they need to really understand. So in 2000, way back 2010, Infosys was about to offer 3 lakhs LPA for freshers. And even now they are also offering only 3.5 lakhs to the freshers. That means, so they are not ready to increase the salary. So they are just asking by increasing the effort of hours. And the second point is, if you understand the trend towards these leaders and the mindset, they are not worried about the quality work. Now our young generation, we are thinking out of the boundary. We are trying to push the boundary, and we are making sure the things will be done within 9 hours a day. If you prolong it without sleep, without food, without family, not seeing your mother, father, kids, what is going to achieve? Do you really be a productive? Why these leaders are not talking about it?
Absolutely. Just because you work longer hours does not make you efficient or productive. That's something that these leaders need to ponder on as well. That's a food for thought, for sure. Thank you so much for calling in. Vishwaroop from Bengaluru is also with us on this broadcast. Vishwaroop, what's your opinion of this 90-hour work week call that has been coming in?
Thank you very much. See, in fact, I was listening to the conversation yesterday, and I think it is very pathetic on the statement what Mr. The chairman of L&T has given, and probably 70 works of Narayana Murthy was acceptable, but this is unacceptable where we cannot work in this kind of conditions, and they look at a slavery from the from the people or the employees.
Thank you so much, Vishwaroop, for calling in here on CNN News 18. Our numbers are flashing at the bottom of our screens. I request our viewers to call in, share your perspective of what you feel about these proposals that have come to the fore. This also comes at a time when there are several European nations that are looking for a 4-day week. And here we are, looking at a 70-hour or a 90-hour work week. Are we taking one step backwards? That's the question many are asking as well. This has become the biggest talking point, both on social media and otherwise. Several industry honchos have also come out and slammed this kind of commentary that is coming to the fore from the L&T chairman, going on to say that it does set a wrong precedent, a wrong example for the younger generation who would want to make a foray, who would want to make their entry into the industry now. Krishna from Bengaluru is also with us on this broadcast. Thank you so much for calling in, Krishna. What is your opinion on this 90-hour work week?
Good evening, madam. Again, I think we are stretching it a little too far. 90 hours sustained for a long period of time, it is not possible for anybody to do that kind of a work. It is absolutely unsustainable. But I have worked for 12, 14, 15 hours a day. Certain projects will require at certain phases of the project when it is required to be released to a customer, or when it has to go to a foundry for a manufacturing or a factory for a production release. There are times when we have been called upon to work on Sundays, Saturdays, 7 days, couple of weeks, and that's what happens, and that's the reality of corporate life today. But it is not. I don't think Mr. Subrahmanyan meant that you are going to work 90 hours, 365 days, around the clock, every day of the month, every day of the year. I think that interpretation is probably what's causing it. But all of us in the corporate world have worked that kind of time at specific times, specific period of project, specific times of business and M&A is happening. Yes, we have to do a lot of due diligence. We sit through the night. I mean, I remember days when I come home at 4 a.m. and then go back at 8 a.m. But that's not something which happens every day of the month. I think we need to draw the line correctly, understand what Subrahmanyan is saying, rather than trying to interpret it in an incorrect way. I would stop here. Thank you.
For calling in. Of course, opinions are divided. Many say that if this is a one-off thing, then perhaps it's justified. If there are certain projects that require it, there are certain demands that are made out of certain employees. But can this become the norm? Some believe that absolutely not. Some others believe that that's not really what the L&T chairman was calling for. The laws are very clear as far as India is concerned. The labor laws go on to talk about exactly how many hours of work is permissible as far as the law is concerned, and that is something that has to be adhered to. Companies will have to pay the price if that's something that is taken away from their employees. But the argument against it is that there are many companies that would make their employees work off the books for much longer. How really then do you find that balance? How then do you really find those who are not adhering to these particular laws that are in place in this country? Now, whether or not a 70 or a 90-hour work week is feasible or not, the debate on that is ongoing. But the central government is also keeping an eye out if this goes beyond the realm of just commentary and into becoming the norm. Pallavi, my colleague, also joining us, getting us more details. Pallavi, another thing that people are talking about is that, there are several European countries that are looking to go to a 4-day week now. They're talking about more productivity. If employees are more happier, they're more self-sufficient in terms of managing both their work and their life outside of work. Now, as far as that is concerned, if we are talking about a 70 or a 90-hour work week, are we taking one step backwards then?
Well, I mean, there is a premium certainly on the work-life balance as far as other countries are concerned, but it's not that it doesn't happen here. I mean, again, I'm quoting the Labour Ministry. If you go by the Labour Ministry, they say that maximum 48 hours of work in a week or 9 to 12 hours in a day is what the rules say. But what happens is that most of the work is done here in the unorganized sector. All of the people are under a certain amount of pressure. Till now, all of this, there's a lid covered on it, but I think every time Narayana Murthy or the CMD of the Larsen & Toubro makes these kind of statements, I think it throws up a debate and discussion once again. Like, for example, in 2020, this discussion began on about house helps, whether they should also be a domestic help act. And that time, again, this topic came up and every time there's an incident of violence against a house helps, this discussion begins, are they not entitled to a weekly off? Should there not be a kind of a timeline as far as the working hours are concerned? But yes, because when you have corporate honchos themselves making these kind of comments, it certainly does raise concern, and that concern is something which has been expressed by many of the people on the social media timeline.
Absolutely, that debate is blowing up, but not just on social media. Here on Nation at 5 as well, we have callers calling in, expressing their concerns, expressing their views about what they feel from this about this call that has come to the fore from the L&T chairman. Nishal Vadekar calling in from Mumbai. Nishal, what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, I work in sales and marketing. Our job demands a 24/7 involvement, and we are anyway involved in a work. But making 90 hours work in office is absolutely rubbish. They make billions. Can they share their profit with employee? I don't. It is not workable from the kind of the person this is coming from. Thanks. That's all.
Thank you so much for calling in here. It's a 90-hour work week, or is it just certain days that you would be expected to work for, say, 14 or 16 hours if that's what your job demands? That's a question many are asking as well. Venkatesh from Bengaluru is with us on the phone line. Venkatesh, what's your opinion? Are you for or against longer hours? Does that mean there's greater productivity?
I think you put the question in a very nice way. It's not a question of the amount of work, but the quality of work one puts in. I'm from the IT industry. And unfortunately, in India, for most of the IT companies, even the ones who call themselves product companies vis-a-vis some other companies who are supposed to be service companies, India, for the rest of the world, is a cost-saving destination. So, for example, in some of the companies I worked with, instead of hiring one person in Europe or in the US, they say, oh, we can hire 4 or 5 people in India, so let's just go ahead and do it and we'll find work later. What happens in this process is that there are people sitting twiddling their thumbs at the workplace while the big bosses keep running after productivity. I think this gentleman has got his heart in the right place. He wants more productivity, and he thinks that increasing work, the working hours will increase productivity, which is completely ridiculous. It might create more havoc and more dissatisfaction and much less engagement, which is already at risk in many industries in India.
Venkatesh, thank you so much for calling in. Productivity is not necessarily linked to the number of hours that you work. Many would argue that it's disproportionate, actually, that if you work perhaps lesser hours but are more efficient, then that would ensure higher productivity at the workplace and greater satisfaction outside of it. But the L&T, the company, in fact, has come out and justified what the chairman was actually trying to say. They put out a statement. They spoke about how the greater good and the national ambition is what they were talking about. Listen in to this statement that has come to the fore from L&T.
Why is L&T still making employees work on Saturdays even after being one of the largest conglomerates and the face of India's business world?
I regret I'm not able to make you work on Sundays, to be honest. If I can make you work on Sundays, I'll be more happier, because I work on Sundays also. What do you do sitting at home? How long can you stare at your wives? How long can the wife stare at your husband? Come on, get to the office and start working.
Why is L&T still making employees work on Saturdays even after being...
Original comment that came to the fore during one of the meetings, during one of the calls that the L&T chairman was having with his employees, that has triggered this entire debate that is spilling over on social media especially, but here on Nation at 5 as well, where our viewers are calling in, expressing their concern, expressing their disappointment with such kind of comments that have coming to the fore. Venugopal from Delhi is with us on this broadcast. Venugopal, what's your opinion? What do you feel about such a call?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I really don't know what Mr. Subrahmanyan was thinking, whether he was smoking some weird stuff when he was talking this. Because he's talking about 90 hours a week, say 15. That's almost 15 hours a day, right? And I think, does he understand what 15 hours a day means living in a city like Bangalore, Delhi, or something like that? He's going to work, an employee is going to work from, say, 8 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock in the night. That's what 15 hours is. Add another 2 hours for travel in a city like Delhi. You reach home at 1 o'clock. So, I think where is the work-life balance? Does Mr. Subrahmanyan understand what is employee burnout? Does he understand work-life balance? I really don't think. And he's talking about China. I can tell you this. I've been a solutions architect for nearly 15 years now. The maximum hours put in are in India and Philippines. Chinese, I think, IT, BPO professionals work much less than India. I think also that comparison is totally good. I think it's wrong. And it's practically impossible to make anybody work for 15 hours a day or 90 hours a day. Already
practically impossible, emotionally draining, physically also a problem. All-encompassing, this proposal is overwhelming to say the least as far as employees go. But thank you so much for calling in. Ashish Shukla from Gurugram also calling us here on this broadcast. Ashish, what's your opinion on this 90-hour work week call?
Well, 90 hours or 70 hours is something that anyone can call, the owners or the chairman of a company can do. What is that the company is willing to give the employees in return of that? Will they give a guarantee that they will not lay off people at any time after employing them? Or would they give away with the annual performance reviews that happen? 90 years, they're giving a one-way thing. It should be from both sides.
It's a give and take. It's a give and take relationship. If 90 hours a week is what's being demanded from employees, then they have to be adequately reimbursed for it as well. But is that all? Is monetary compensation the only reason why anybody would agree to work, if at all, for 90 hours a week? That's a question many are asking as well. Is that the only way to get productivity or efficiency out of people? What happens to work-life balance? What happens to anybody's mental health when they're working that long hours? And eventually, if your mental health takes a hit, then isn't your productivity going to take a hit as well? Would this call be actually counterproductive is a question many are asking on social media as this debate blows up. We're taking your calls live here on Nation at 5. The numbers are flashing on the bottom of your screens. Do call in, do share your perspective, your view of what you feel about this call that has come into the fore from the L&T chairman. While he was asking his employees that if he, while he was telling his employees that if he could make them work on Sundays, then he would, and that would make him a happy man. He also went on to say that I do that myself, so I would expect that from my employees too. To which many ask that the salaries of a chairman and of an ordinary employee would be completely disproportionate. To make such a comparison in terms of work would be not ideal, to say the very least. L&T had come out with a statement after this entire controversy blew out of proportion. They spoke about how they're working for the country, how it's the greater good and the larger ambition that they keep in mind when such a comment was made. But let's listen in once again to the entire debate that has been sparked off by that one particular comment during one of the calls that the L&T chairman had with his employees.
Is L&T still making employees work on Saturdays even after being one of the largest conglomerates and the face of India's business world?
I regret I'm not able to make you work on Sundays, to be honest. If I can make you work on Sundays, I'll be more happier. Because I work on Sundays also. What do you do sitting at home? How long can you stare at your wives? How long can the wife stare at your husband? Come on, get to the office and start working.
The debate is blowing up here on Nation at 5 as well on social media. We'll keep a track of that and much more here on CNN News 18. But for now, it's time for a quick break.
Well, they called for an appeal, and as you know, they acknowledged what the judge said about no penalty, and there's no penalty. But we're going to appeal anyway, just psychologically, because frankly, it's a disgrace. It's a judge that shouldn't have been on the case. He's a highly conflicted judge, and they called for an appeal. So I read it, and I thought it was a fair decision, actually. So I'll do my little thing tomorrow. They can have fun with their political opponent. As you know, I'm under a gag order from a judge. This is a first. This was an attack of a political opponent. And if you take a look at it, I'm not supposed to be talking about it, so I won't. I'm the first president and probably one of the first candidates in history that's under attack with a gag order, where I'm not allowed to speak about something. And they ought to find out what that's all about. And this is a long way from finished. And I respect the court's opinion. I think it was actually a very good opinion for us because you saw what they said. But they invited the appeal, and the appeal is on the bigger issue. So we'll see how it all works out. I think it's going to work out well.
Off the top, you mentioned the Carter funeral today. What were you talking to Barack Obama about?
It did look very friendly, I must say. I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it, how friendly it looked. I saw it on your wonderful network just a little while ago before I came in, and I said, boy, they look like two people that like each other, and we probably do. We have little different philosophies, right? But we probably do. I don't know. We just got along. But I got along with just about everybody on that. We met backstage, as you know, before we went on. And I thought it was a beautiful service. But we all got along very well, which is good. I call it the Injustice Department. What they've done is so bad. The whole world has watched that. And it took work, but it got me a lot of votes because when explained, I mean, we have a judge in New York who's a very crooked judge. I'm under a gag order. I can't even talk about aspects of the case that are the most vital aspects.
Thank you so much for staying with us here on Nation at 5. Sambhal keeps to be in focus as far as the dispute over the Shahi Eidgah, the Jama Masjid there is concerned. Today, there was a hearing in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decided to put a halt on the proceedings as far as an order of the civic body went, which allowed puja that was offered at the well, which is right outside the Jama Masjid. Supreme Court has stayed those proceedings, but during that hearing, the Uttar Pradesh government went on to say that the well, which is a part of the disputed land, is actually government land, it's public land, and which is why it should be allowed. They also went on to say that even though now peace and harmony is present in Sambhal after the clashes that broke out in November, it is the Muslim side that's trying to disrupt the course of this particular discourse, and it is the Muslim side that is trying to break this peace and harmony, to which the Supreme Court and the CJI-led bench went on to assert that it is peace and harmony in Sambhal and in Uttar Pradesh that is of paramount importance, which is why they cannot let these orders go by of puja happening at that well.
Well, we are being joined by Vishnu Shankar Jain. Vishnu, today the UP government has gone on to say that it is a public land that is there and the Muslim side is trying to disrupt the peace. How do you see these statements? Why the UP government is calling it a public land?
Because the so-called well, which is a subject matter of dispute before the Honorable Supreme Court today, was never a part of the so-called alleged mosque. This so-called well is outside the mosque. People were worshipping in the well, and in the recent times, the puja and all the rituals were stopped in the well. So today the mosque committee has approached the Honorable Supreme Court, and they have requested the Honorable Supreme Court to maintain status quo so far as this well is concerned. The Honorable Supreme Court has asked for a status report from the Uttar Pradesh government, and the matter is now posted on 21st of February for further hearing, and we will also file our detailed counter affidavit showing and demonstrating before the Honorable Court that this so-called well is outside the purview of the mosque.
You know, another thing that comes up is that very recently, it has been stated that the old files when it comes to the violence that had occurred there is going to be reopened. But it is also being said by, the Muslim side that this is a well. But until, as you say, that till 2006, there were marriages that used to happen. There used to Kuwa Pujan that used to happen. How do you see that, and how do you see the reopening of these files?
See, this reopening of files is very, very important. Let me tell you, there were around 1100 people who were accused in the Sambhal riots of 1978, who were within the zone of investigation. Ultimately, it has so happened that when the trial actually happened, only 2 people were convicted. So we have to see that whether appeals have to be filed against those people who have been wrongly acquitted, what was the zone of investigation, against whom charge sheets have been filed, against whom final report or closure reports have been filed. All these things will be seen, and justice will be given after 46 years. A quest for justice, an initiation of justice has begun after 46 years for those who were brutally murdered. 184 people were brutally murdered under the guise of secularism.
UP government has gone on to say today that the Muslim side is trying to disrupt the peace and tranquility there. Is it true?
Yeah, definitely, because the so-called well, which is the subject matter of dispute before in the present application, is completely outside the purview of the so-called mosque, and therefore if people are performing their rituals there, if people are performing their puja part there, how can it be said that this well is a part of the mosque? It is completely an encroachment which has happened there. The police outpost is there on the half part of the well. So therefore this well is not a part of the mosque, and we will demonstrate all these things before the Honorable Supreme Court.
Last and final question before I let you go. The ASI in an affidavit before the district court had stated that the situation was such till the very recent times that the ASI officials were not able to enter that particular disputed site, which is said to be a ASI protected monument. If you could explain that in detail.
The fact of the matter is that this is a ASI protected monument from 1920, and it has so happened with the passage of time, the ASI is not able. ASI has lost control. ASI has lost actual physical possession of that area in question, and today the situation is that ASI is not able to enter there. In fact, ASI, when they went to conduct a survey, they had to face lot of difficulties. The locals were taking photographs and they were disrupting the survey which was being conducted by the ASI. All these things are mentioned in the affidavit of the ASI. So it's a shocking state of affairs where we talk about rule of law, but if a particular notification is issued under the ASI Act 1958, that is not being acted upon. So therefore I personally believe that this is a very shocking state of affairs, and it's time that courts must take action and let the ASI take control of the so-called area.
जवाहरलाल नेहरू का 1924 का लेटर हिंदुस्तान के अंदर कांग्रेस पार्टी, समाजवादी पार्टी के तुष्टीकरण की राजनीति को एक्सपोज करता है. इट एक्सपोजेस द अपीजमेंट पॉलिटिक्स दैट द समाजवादी पार्टी एंड द कांग्रेस पार्टी प्रैक्टिस फॉर 70 years in Uttar Pradesh. It makes it clear that the aggrieved party in Sambhal is the Hindus. The truth of Sambhal is that the Sanatanis have equal right in Sambhal as any other community. This is why the Hanuman Mandir, which was locked for 40 years, was opened by the BJP government under Yogi Adityanath. The appeasement politicians like Samajwadi Party and the Congress Party can try as hard as they can. Sanatan Bharat has reawakened, and Sanatan Bharat lawfully will reclaim the truth.
Now to some breaking news that's coming in, that's happening in our neighborhood as far as the attacks in Balochistan are concerned and the crisis that Pakistan seems to be dealing with. Now Pakistan government sources are indicating that they believe there is an America versus China war that's playing out, and Balochistan is the battlefield where it's all happening. Sources close to the Pakistani government have told us that the United States wants China to move out of Balochistan, which is why they're arming these rebels who are conducting these attacks, who are taking control of these regions, looting millions and taking control of the situation by looting people, by attacking the Pakistani army as well. Akanksha, my colleague, now joining us, getting us more inputs on this. Akanksha, what else have we gathered from our sources within the Pakistani government?
Right. These are inputs, in fact, brought to us by our senior investigations editor, Mr. Manoj Gupta. And what he's learned from intel sources is that this is turning out to be a major tussle between China and the United States. As you rightly mentioned, that rebel forces, primarily the Balochistan Liberation Army, is being used to attack. Weapons are being looted from quarter guards of forces. Close to 90 million has been looted from a police station that was under absolute control of the army. And we all know that an attack took place on Wednesday itself as well, Poonam. So it's important to highlight that these are militant forces that are storming various thanas and police stations, looting not just hard cash but also even weapons. Armed gunmen from BLA have been launching various attacks at various police stations in districts of Balochistan. Now, this is not possible that these massive operations can be conducted without any external help and support and without revolt of Pakistan army. But Pakistani army has been very quiet, rather being a mute spectator. Pakistan army is also seen quiet in last few attacks, possibly under some negotiations. That is what the hint is. China, of course, as we all know, Poonam, has been upset due to ongoing attacks in the area because remember they are going on with their the corridor project that's currently on, and their workers have been consistently attacked. Pakistan army has not been complying in protecting the Chinese workers. On the other hand, American interests are also there. America wants this area for counter-terrorism, regional stability, and balancing, counterbalancing China, keeping China in a check. The strategic interests of China, the US and Qatar are also shaped by their economic security and geopolitical interests.
Right, Akanksha, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front. To put this in perspective for us and what this could mean for India, geopolitics expert Professor Madhav Nalapat also joining us. Professor Nalapat, for long Pakistan has blamed India, in fact, for trying to keep that rebellion and the revolt brewing in Balochistan. Now it looks like there seems to be a larger ploy at play. It's a United States versus China sort of playing out in the battlefield of Balochistan. Do you think that this is plausible, that the United States or external forces could be actually arming these BLA troops?
Well, I'd like to make the point that for close on 2 decades now, especially in the last decade, the Pakistan army has become an auxiliary of the People's Liberation Army of the PRC. And this has caused great unhappiness among all the major democracies. India, United States, other democracies. There's no question about that. This link between the PLA and the Pakistan army is no secret. It's quite well known. And the fact that now the Pakistan army is functioning as a satellite of the PLA almost, and Pakistan is now acting as the proxy for fomenting various problems in countries, including India. Now, I want to say that the information that I have is that the Pakistan army soldiers are suffering extremely low morale. They feel that their salaries are very low, that the officer cadre is taking the entire cream. They're having a very cushy time. And in the meantime, the ordinary soldier is suffering privations. There's huge inflation. Salary levels have not risen proportionately. And the living conditions also not improving but worsening. So there is no question that morale in the Pakistan army is very low. As far as Balochistan is concerned, it's a very crucial part of the China-Pakistan economic corridor, so to speak, which actually begins in Indian territory. And that corridor is a very important strategic artery for China. And frankly, any country that is being threatened by China would not be very happy at the development of that corridor. So far as the United States is concerned, tensions between China and the US have been rising and rising for quite some time. The current administration has very many people who are friendly to China. The new administration, fortunately, has very few such people. And in fact, they have a lot of people who are very clear-eyed about China, especially the national security choices of President Trump. So quite frankly, from all this point of view and the fact that the BLA is a formidable force, it represents a very proud people, like the Pashtuns. I mean, like the Sindhis, the Baloch are a very proud people, and they are being crushed under the domination of the Pakistan army, which is run by a particular part of a particular province of Pakistan, not Balochistan, not Sindh, not Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, another province. So there is no question that there's very low morale in the military, and that soldiers say, why should we put our lives on the line? What are we going to get? Some measly pension for our families. And we leave widows and grieving children behind. What are we going to get for that? So quite frankly, there's no doubt that the BLA is on the offensive. There's no doubt that Pashtuns are also extremely angry. And these two are very, very proud nationalistic forces. And for too long, they have been under the oppression of the Pakistan military. And may I say, they resent China because China has been a facilitator and force multiplier for the Pakistan military. So in
Should
my
India
view,
be worried then, Professor
there is a
Nalapat?
certain credibility on this. Sorry, go
Should
ahead.
India be worried then?
Look, frankly, in my view, no. For simple, only thing is we need to be worried about one thing, and that is an effort to push millions of people across the frontier. Unfortunately, in the eastern side, where the Bangladesh frontier is concerned, millions and millions of people have moved in. Unfortunately, in Myanmar, after the coup, hundreds of thousands of people moved in. And in both cases, some of us had warned this is a grave danger, this should be stopped, and this should be checked. Unfortunately, that has happened. We should be very clear. Every effort should be made to ensure that the border with not just Kashmir, I mean, separating, frankly, the Pakistan-occupied part of Kashmir from the lawful state of Kashmir, but the entire India-Pakistan border is properly policed and fenced. Because my only fear is that this kind of problem will lead to a lot of influx of refugees, and within the refugees, you will find a lot of people who are out to do India harm. That's what happened in Myanmar. Some of us warned at that point in time that please be careful. The people who are coming across, many of them are basically agents of the Chinese, and they will create trouble. And lo and behold, you see what's happening in Manipur? Trouble is being created. So I would sound a similar warning now and say that I hope and I'm confident that the government will ensure that this kind of an influx is stopped and that we do not allow any kind of illegal entry from Pakistan into India. That's extremely important. As far as Balochistan is concerned, frankly, our moral, diplomatic, and political support should be with the people who are fighting to rid themselves of oppression, of slavery, if I may say so, to a military that is itself enslaved. So another country. So personally, in my personal view, we should give moral, diplomatic, and political support to the people of Balochistan, the people of Pashtunistan, and other oppressed ethnicities in Pakistan who are being oppressed by the Pakistan military.
And India historically has maintained that stand. They have had a sympathetic view of what's transpiring there as far as the people of Balochistan are concerned, and the kind of allegations, the kind of revolt and rebellion that they have led over the years. But the attacks that we're seeing now, they are a cause of concern. Maybe not in the immediate future, but of course New Delhi is keeping a close watch. Professor Nalapat, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18 and sharing your perspective. With that, we're slipping into a quick break on Nation at 5. Back in just a few minutes.
Well, they called for an appeal, and as you know, they acknowledged what the judge said about no penalty, and there's no penalty. But we're going to appeal anyway, just psychologically, because frankly, it's a disgrace. It's a judge that shouldn't have been on the case. He's a highly conflicted judge, and they called for an appeal. So I read it, and I thought it was a fair decision, actually. So I'll do my little thing tomorrow. They can have fun with their political opponent. As you know, I'm under a gag order from a judge. This is a first. This was an attack of a political opponent. And if you take a look at it, I'm not supposed to be talking about it, so I won't. I'm the first president and probably one of the first candidates in history that's under attack with a gag order, where I'm not allowed to speak about something. And they ought to find out what that's all about. And this is a long way from finished. And I respect the court's opinion. I think it was actually a very good opinion for us because you saw what they said. But they invited the appeal, and the appeal is on the bigger issue. So we'll see how it all works out. I think it's going to work out well.
Off the top, you mentioned the Carter funeral today. What were you talking to Barack Obama about?
It did look very friendly, I must say. I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it, how friendly it looked. I saw it on your wonderful network just a little while ago before I came in, and I said, boy, they look like two people that like each other, and we probably do. We have little different philosophies, right? But we probably do. I don't know, we just got along, but I got along with just about everybody on that. We met backstage, as you know, before we went on, and I thought it was a beautiful service, but we all got along very well, which is good. I call it the Injustice Department. What they've done is so bad. The whole world has watched that. And it took work, but it got me a lot of votes because when explained, I mean, we have a judge in New York who's a very crooked judge. I'm under a gag order. I can't even talk about aspects of the case that are the most vital aspects. And remember, this is a man that said he wants the transition to be smooth. Well, you don't do the kind of things. You don't have a judge working real hard to try and embarrass you. Because I did nothing wrong. By the way, I did nothing, absolutely nothing wrong. If I did something wrong, I wouldn't be standing here right now because I've won all these cases. Nobody's ever won so many cases as I have.
How'd it go today? What happens next, sir?
Welcome back. Unfortunate news coming in from the United States, where wildfires are raging across Los Angeles and California. At least 10 people have lost their lives. Thousands have been evacuated to safer ground as winds continue to fuel that smoke, that wildfire that has been raging across several counties. In fact, in Los Angeles, the president of the United States, Joe Biden, has also approved federal disaster aid to support and recovery efforts as firefighters continue to fight day and night to work around the clock to control that blaze. There are many homes that have been gutted, property that has been gutted, including that of several celebrities.
Devastation out there is catastrophic in California. Thousands of houses, schools, businesses burned to the ground. Communities wiped out, lives lost, families forever changed. They're the worst fires to ever hit Los Angeles, ever. So today I'm announcing that the federal government will cover 100% of the cost for 180 days. This is going to pay for things like debris and hazard material removal, temporary shelters, first responders' salaries, and all necessary measures to protect life and property. And folks, I want to underscore, I told the governor and local officials, spare no expense to do what they need to do and contain these fires and in their communities that have really been devastated.
I'm leaving this office very shortly, but it's not about the politics. It's about giving people some sense of security that we're going to be able to get this under control, but it's going to take time. And it's going to take time. And like I said, in the next little bit, we're going to be going back to Congress asking for some more help on some of this stuff. And I hope they're ready to step up because we can afford it. And like I said, we have a little infrastructure bill that's over $1 trillion. That's going to be able to help a little bit.
Less than 10 days into the new year, and the world is already facing its first environmental crisis. With over 1 lakh people evacuated and 5 already dead, Los Angeles is facing destruction like never before. With winds as fast as 100 miles an hour further spreading the fires, not just the common folks, even Hollywood celebrities are facing the wrath of this unfortunate event, with many forced to flee their homes. Many A-listers took to their social media accounts to spread awareness about this disastrous event. Starting off with Priyanka Chopra. Priyanka first shared a horrifying video of the fires that she recorded from her house as she prayed for everybody's well-being. In another story, she was seen thanking the fire responders for their swift actions. Guardians of the Galaxy star Chris Pratt too uploaded a series of photos thanking the brave firefighters and asked everyone to send in their prayers and wishes for all those who had been displaced by the fires. This Is Us star Mandy Moore had a rather narrow escape from the fires.
Well, they called for an appeal, and as you know, they acknowledge what the judge said about no penalty, and there's no penalty. But we're going to appeal anyway, just psychologically, because frankly, it's a disgrace. It's a judge that shouldn't have been on the case. He's a highly conflicted judge, and they called for an appeal. So I read it, and I thought it was a fair decision, actually. So I'll do my little thing tomorrow. They can have fun with their political opponent. As you know, I'm under a gag order from a judge. This is the first. This was an attack of a political opponent. And if you take a look at it, I'm not supposed to be talking about it, so I won't. I'm the first president and probably one of the first candidates in history that's under attack with a gag order, where I'm not allowed to speak about something. And they ought to find out what that's all about. And this is a long way from finished. And I respect the court's opinion. I think it was actually a very good opinion for us because you saw what they said. But they invited the appeal, and the appeal is on the bigger issue. So we'll see how it all works out. I think it's going to work out well.
Off the top, you mentioned the Carter funeral today. What were you talking to Barack Obama about?
It did look very friendly, I must say. I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it, how friendly it looked. I saw it on your wonderful network just a little while ago before I came in, and I said, boy, they look like two people that like each other, and we probably do. We have little different philosophies, right? But we probably do. I don't know, we just got along, but I got along with just about everybody on that. We met backstage, as you know, before we went on, and I thought it was a beautiful service, but we all got along very well, which is good.
I call it the Injustice Department. What they've done is so bad. The whole world has watched that.
Achieving your fitness goals remains one of the top priorities or top New Year resolutions that most people make every single year. But what actually happens to that resolution, say a few weeks into the year, say by March or April? Most people actually do drop out, even though they try really hard to hit the gym, do their sort of fitness journey. But all of that comes crashing down perhaps by the time you reach April. That's what studies show. So how can you maintain your fitness journey? We'll tell you. And with that, it's a wrap.
But Venika, I'm sure there are days where you feel like, aaj nahi. You know, you've had a rough day at work or you don't feel like it and you say, okay, you know, I've been so good this last 2 weeks, let me give it a break. How do you get back on?
So, as I said, drilling down on what motivates you is really important. And I realized I'm a very community-driven person. So I found a gym where I have people who will, my fellow gym goers who are otherwise not my friends, I didn't join it with a community, who will text me to be like, ma'am, aap 2-3 din se nahi aaye, you know, are you coming back? Are you on a holiday? Also, I get FOMO, like when they post on their social media being like, in the gym we did this, then I'm like, oh my God, I missed that class. Now I don't know how to do that. I'll be 2 steps behind. And so that has really kept me going because I want to be as good as them because now they've sort of become friends or at least acquaintances. And that's really an exciting aspect that I never thought I would find in a gym, frankly.
Brought to you by...
Well, they called for an appeal, and as you know, they acknowledged what the judge said about no penalty, and there's no penalty. But we're going to appeal anyway, just psychologically, because frankly, it's a disgrace. It's a judge that shouldn't have been on the case. He's a highly conflicted judge, and they called for an appeal. So I read it, and I thought it was a fair decision, actually. So I'll do my little thing tomorrow. They can have fun with their political opponent. As you know, I'm under a gag order from a judge. This is the first. This was an attack of a political opponent. And if you take a look at it, I'm not supposed to be talking about it, so I won't. I'm the first president and probably one of the first candidates in history that's under attack with a gag order, where I'm not allowed to speak about something. And they ought to find out what that's all about. And this is a long way from finished. And I respect the court's opinion. I think it was actually a very good opinion for us because you saw what they said. But they invited the appeal, and the appeal is on the bigger issue. So we'll see how it all works out. I think it's going to work out well.
Off the top, you mentioned the Carter funeral today. What were you talking to Barack Obama about?
It did look very friendly, I must say. I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it, how friendly it looked. I saw it on your wonderful network just a little while ago before I came in, and I said, boy, they look like two people that like each other, and we probably do. We have little different philosophies, right? But we probably do. I don't know, we just got along, but I got along with just about everybody on that. We met backstage, as you know, before we went on. And I thought it was a beautiful service, but we all got along very well, which is good.
I call it the Injustice Department. What they've done is so bad. The whole world has watched that. And it took work, but it got me a lot of votes because when explained, I mean, we have a judge in New York who's a very crooked judge. I'm under a gag order. I can't even talk about aspects of the case that are the most vital aspects. And remember, this is a man that said he wants the transition to be smooth. Well, you don't do the kind of...
Primetime Studio.
A very good evening. You're watching Play and Speak. I'm Akanksha Swaroop and we are coming live to you from the CNN News 18 Primetime Studio presented by Green Lamb Laminates. Now, the debate surrounding work-life balance is back in the headlines. Larsen and Toubro's chairperson, S.N. Subrahmanyan, recently faced backlash, this after his comments that were made about wanting his employees to work 90 hours a week and that have gone viral now. During an employee interaction, Subrahmanyan expressed regret over not being able to make employees work on Sundays. He suggested that working on weekends would lead to extraordinary outcomes. His remarks, which included a controversial question about what employees do at home, sparked widespread criticism. Viewers, this is what the L&T chairperson and his controversial remarks were. Listen in to what he has to say.
I regret I'm not able to make you work on Sundays, to be honest. If I can make you work on Sundays, I'll be more happier because I work on Sundays also. What do you do sitting at home? How long can you stare at your wives? How long can the wife stare at your husband? Come on, get to the office and start working.
All right. What do you do sitting at home? How long can you stare at your wife? How long can the wives stare at their husbands? So clearly, according to Mr. Subrahmanyan, your home needs no hard work. Let's reserve it only for office. Now, in response, Larsen and Toubro issued a statement clarifying that his comments were intended to highlight the importance of extraordinary effort for achieving extraordinary results and not to pressure employees into extended working hours. Dear viewers, believe it or not, but karoshi is actually a Japanese term. This for death from overwork, which can be caused by various factors like malnourishment, even stress, anxiety, panic attacks, all resulting from overwork. In fact, according to the latest report from the International Labour Organization or ILO, Indians work the longest hours among the 10 largest economies in the world. So much so, India's weekly working hours exceed those of the United States, Japan, China, Germany, the UK, France and Brazil. Not surprising that India is one of the most overworked countries in the world. The ILO also found that Indian workers are among the worst paid in Asia too. So at a time when the world is sharply divided between work-life balance and the hustle culture, the question to ask is, which path leads to success and how do you define success? And before we do that, according to the International Labour Organization data, let me share with you the average working hours and the prevalence of excessive working time based on hours of work and working time arrangement. Let's take you through the top 10 countries with the most extended working hours in 2024. Despite its relatively small population of approximately 700,000, Bhutan, surprisingly Bhutan, ranks as the country with the highest average working hours globally. Employees in Bhutan work an average of 54.4 hours per week. Following Bhutan, the United Arab Emirates report high working hours, averaging 50.9 hours per week. In Lesotho, people work for 50.4 hours every week, which makes it the third country with the highest working hours per week in the world. At number 4, we have Congo, where employees work for 48.6 hours per week. In Qatar, employees have an average work week of 48 hours. Now, the comments of Larsen & Toubro's chairperson S.N. Subrahmanyan have sparked widespread outrage, with many even questioning the implications of such a grueling work culture. The first criticism that's being levelled is that prolonged work hours can lead to burnout, fatigue, stress and higher risk of physical health issues. That includes heart diseases, even sleep disorders. The second criticism